Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Monday, the 13th of April. This is the very first Burnout at Breakfast. Thank you very, very much for joining me. This is my very first time of going live directly on YouTube. All of the lives that I've done before have all been done via different streaming platforms. So, firstly, I'm hoping that you can see me, that you can hear me, that I've set everything up properly. If you are joining me live, say hello. Let me know where you are from, why you're here. That will be amazing. I do want to talk to you today about it's an email that I got a couple of weeks ago, but it's a repetition of an email that I get frequently or a DM that I get frequently from coaches. So I suppose the main topic that I want to talk about today is this, and the message that I get is like, I'm really passionate about this work. I really want to coach burnout, but I can't even I can't even fix myself. Can't even recover myself. Can't even get myself better. And so I obviously can't coach other people through this. So I want to talk to you about that today. But I also thought, let's start with a bit of an introduction. Who am I? What is Burnout at Breakfast? What do I want to create? What do I want this space to be? What do you want this space to be? How can we co-create this space together? Why am I doing it at 7:30 on a Monday? So I thought we'd answer kind of all of those questions first, explain a little bit more about that, and then we can get into answering that email. Right? I'm really passionate about this work, but I can't even fix myself. So how am I then supposed to coach others? That's where I want us to take the conversation today. Let's start then with a little bit about, well, let's start why are we doing this at 7:30? Why 7:30 on a Monday morning? Whatever time I've been doing lives for I don't know how many years now. I've been but a very, very long time. There is never a perfect time to do these. If I do them in the morning, everybody says to me they're too busy. If I do them at an evening, everybody says they're too busy. If I do them during the day, everybody tells me they're too busy. And everybody's always too busy, right? Which is perhaps ironic when it comes to this. So I was then looking at my diary, looking at where I feel I could perhaps set the tone either for the day or for the week, or to, I don't know, if you've got questions that you want to ask pre the live. If I just continue to promote these and you've got questions or you've got topics or you've got things that you want answered, I can answer them live for you. But I thought if we do this 7:30 on a Monday, you then got the whole week to watch and replay if you want, right? But hopefully I want to be able to add some value to your week. I want to answer the questions that you want answering. I want to dispel some of these myths. I'm seeing, I mean, loads of people at the moment are just like changing their LinkedIn headline, right? I work with people at Burnout. Then when you dig into it, what they're giving you is kind of resilience tips or time management tips, which are great. We're not knocking any of that, but actually they're not going to help. They're not going to help with burnout. So I do want to be able to share, I suppose, more of my own experiences, more of my own journey, why I'm here, why I'm doing this work, why this stuff is important to me. But also, you're just going to get me as you find me on a Monday morning. I do a yoga class at 6:30 on a Monday morning. It's just a 30-minute with the fabulous Stanford Yoga Studio. Give them a bit of a shameless plug. Just very quickly, I have been practicing yoga since 2009. I've been on yoga retreats, North and South India. I've done yoga retreats in Ibiza. I've done them in various different places across the UK. I love my yoga. I trained as a yoga teacher just to deepen my own practice quite a few years ago now. But Stanford Yoga, my friend Laura is one of the teachers there. It's a guy called Marcus that runs it. And a few weeks ago, I was at my friend Laura's retreat. She did a day retreat. And she's like, oh, we do all of the classes virtually. So I thought, all right, brilliant. So I've been doing like at least 7 classes a week with them for the last few weeks. And they're just beautiful, beautiful practices. So I thought Monday morning, do my yoga, rock up live. So you're probably gonna get me in lots of different states, right? On a Monday morning. That class is 6:30 till 7. Sometimes you might get me fully done up and ready for the day. Sometimes you might get me still in my yoga gear, completely unmade, completely undone, just with a cup of tea. Sometimes you might get me stuff in my face with my breakfast. I want this to be a no judgment space. Literally no judgment. I won't judge the questions. There's no such thing as a stupid question. If you've got a question, if you've got a topic that you want to talk about, let's talk about it. And you will accept me as I am as I rock up on a Monday. So, as I said, sometimes that might be full phase, red lip, off we go. Sometimes that might be hair all over the place. Sometimes that might be my yoga gear. We're going to take each other as we find each other, but there's going to be no such thing. There is no such thing as a stupid question. If you can join live or if you want to join on replay, then just ask your questions in advance, right? If you've got a question for next week, pop it in the I still need to get used to how the YouTube works, but I'm going to schedule next week's Burnout at Breakfast immediately after this one. So if you've got questions, pop them in the chat. If that doesn't work, because I'm still trying to figure out all of the tech of this, as I said, usually I use kind of streaming platforms. Pop the comments or the questions in this chat. We'll bring them into next week. If you can join live, join live. Let's get chatting. Let's do whatever it is that we need to do. But I just want us to be able to have more conversations about this stuff. I am seeing so much, and it almost feels like it's a copy and paste job, right? I think burnout's been growing massively since 2020 for lots and lots of different reasons. Some of them obvious, some of them not. Definitely over the last couple of years, with the rise of AI, everybody seems to now be assuming that they are a burnout expert, right? And we are seeing the World Health Organization definition just rehashed, copied and pasted onto lots and lots of different profiles. And like I've been having for the last, I don't know, year, 18 months, lots of conversations with AI to talk about its understanding of burnout. I know what to challenge it. Like, where did you get that information from? Where's that stat from? Is that true? That doesn't ring true. That's not actually. And it, I keep being told, but no, actually, no. That you're right. That's not right. I just kind of made an assumption. No, that's that. I've given you incorrect information. There isn't actually a report for that. Even for my own work, I've had ChatGPT tell me that my TEDx talk is called something that it's not. It has told me titles of my books that are not titles of my books. It's told me research that I'm doing. Now I'm doing my PhD at the moment, all about burnout, but it's told me that I'm researching specific topics that I'm not researching, right? So AI is giving me misinformation about myself. It's giving misinformation about burnout. But of course, then what we're seeing more of is people talking with such confidence, right? AI wrote it, so therefore it must be right. But we also need to be careful of the fact that AI is then, certainly my understanding, right? It's then scraping the internet to give us more answers. So it's giving us misinformation in the first place that we're then sharing. And then it's almost like regurgitating the misinformation that it spouted in the first place to then allow people to then talk more confidently about what burnout is. Now, I have no issue with people, using AI. I do think in a lot of cases, right, it's helping people to find voices. It's helping people to feel more confident. But it also means that misinformation is spreading. Now, I've been doing this work now for 12, 13 years. My first burnout back in 2013 made me really, really seriously ill, like seriously ill. And after 7 months of physical pain, I ended up having to have 2 operations in 48 hours for 2 very, very serious conditions as a result of the ongoing stress, the chronic stress that I'd been putting my body through. 2 years later, my second burnout nearly killed me. That still wasn't enough for me to say, do you know what? I need to make some changes. But what did prompt me to really make some changes was a phone call that I got to tell me that my replacement had died. So I was a corporate HR director. Had my seat at the table. I was managing a team of 43 HR pros. Had my seat at the table at 30. Like I thought, on paper I had everything, right? I had the six-figure salary. I had my seat at the table. I had the job title. I had, married, gorgeous twin boys. But I had my sons at 20. 10 years later, I still got my seat at the table. I was trying to be like best mum, best wife, best boss, best daughter, best friend, trying to be all of those things. And I genuinely didn't realize what I was doing to myself. I just thought everything that I was doing was just part of being a working mum, being a working woman, getting my seat at the table as early as I did. I thought almost like this was the price to pay for being at that top table, and or for being paid the salary that I was being paid. When I left, I left voluntarily, and I would still probably argue with anybody, right? I would probably still be like, yeah, well, I didn't leave because of burnout. I left because I heard myself say when I was doing my exec coaching qualification, I heard myself say for the first time, I want to start my own business. Now, I have no idea where that came from. Would I have always been there? I don't know. I genuinely thought I was going to be like a corporate lifer. Turns out that wasn't meant to be the case. But I don't know if that was prompted because of my burnout. Now, over the 12 years that I've been doing this, I have created what I call my burnout equation, right? Toxicity minus sense of self equals burnout. Toxicity minus sense of self equals burnout. When we lose our sense of self and we combine that with toxic environments, that could be toxic workplaces, toxic thoughts, toxic habits, toxic patterns, toxic friendships, toxic relationships. But when we are surrounded by toxicity, that causes us to lose ourselves. That could be because we're masking. That could be because it's eroding our sense of self. The environment is quite literally causing us to lose ourselves in the mix of that. But if we combine toxicity and our loss of self, we will end up at burnout. I know that without a doubt from having been in this space now for 13 years. And as I said, I didn't change anything when it came to my first or second burnout. There were things that I was starting to kind of change. There were lots of, I suppose, kind of dots that were joining in my head, but I didn't really understand what was happening. I didn't really understand what this thing called burnout was. I mean, this was again back in kind of 2013, 2015. But I did receive a phone call to tell me that my replacement, the HRD that had gone in after me, had died in her sleep whilst away on a leadership residential. And I can remember just feeling numb when I got that news. Wasn't really sure how to kind of take it. Wasn't really sure what to do. Now, that numbness, I also know now, is part of what burnout does to us. But I also received a phone call 2 days after that to tell me that I was not the first HRD to become seriously ill as a result of that organization. I'd been the fourth. Now, I'm going to talk about this. I talk about this quite a lot. I think I'm talking about it again in my podcast in a few weeks' time. But there was this what I call the kind of Harry Potter syndrome, right? Usually, what happens is when people exit organizations, there's almost this kind of we must never talk about them again, right? It's like they become a bit like Voldemort, right? They who must never be named again. And even with working in HR, I just assumed that if there were people that we couldn't really talk about anymore, it must have been because of something that they had done. Right? They must have done something wrong. They must have not been particularly good at the job. They must have needed to leave under a compromise because of something. And then it was I became that person, right? She who must not be named because she's left the organization. But to be in that HRDC, I knew there'd been, quite a big turnover of HR directors within this organization. I was convinced that I was the one that, was going to save the day and everything was going to be fine. Turns out that wasn't the bloody case at all. But that was also the kind of eye opener to me. Alison had died. I was then told 2 days later I'd been the fourth HR director to become seriously ill as a result of that organisation, and it was that really got me wanting to understand this thing called burnout more, wanting to understand stress more, wanting to understand why 4 HR directors could make themselves or get to the point of being really, really seriously ill, and one of them has to die in order for anybody to kind of think we probably need to be doing something differently here. Now, I reached out to the professional body at the time. I reached out to the CIPD at the time to say, what are you doing to support HR? They told me, contact your EAP, your employee assistance provider, contact them, they'll get it sorted. I'm like, just not good enough, right? You need to be doing more to protect the profession. And that's what started me on this journey of doing this work. So over 12, 13 years, I have been studying, researching, joining the dots. So when I see things that are just regurgitating the World Health Organization definition, that is not enough. Right, the World Health Organization definition was published in 2019. In 2020, there was another research report that was it ended up creating the other research that was published in 2020 ended up creating what's called the BAT, right, the Burnout Assessment Tool. And that tells us that we don't have to be employed in order to be experiencing burnout. The World Health Organization definition tells us that burnout is a workplace phenomenon. Those of us that have lived burnout will know that it's much more than just feeling a bit cynical about work and being a bit exhausted. Right? Burnout eats away at you. Burnout changes your cognitive functioning. It impacts your decision making. It impacts your relationships, your ability to do your job. There are long-term, long-lasting impacts of burnout. Burnout can take years to recover from. Burnout can take lifetimes to recover from. Burnout can cause really serious long-term health impacts, health effects. It can cause, it can contribute to chronic illnesses. We don't seem to be talking about, like, when we kind of wrap it up in a, well, it's just kind of, it's a workplace phenomenon, and it's a bit of cynicism, and you just end up feeling a little bit exhausted. It's so much more than that. Now, I've looked at and still continue to study the psychology and the neuroscience and the neurology and the physiology. Like, I've been joining the dots of burnout from every single possible angle for years. My PhD research is specifically focusing on the long-term cognitive impact of burnout, the impact that it has on our brain, and therefore the impact that it's having on our entire nervous system. Right, that's where I'm taking this work, but I want to be able to look at it from a coaching perspective. Now, I believe that coaches are in a prime position to be able to eliminate burnout. And I believe that they're in a prime position. Before my Burnout 1 and Burnout 2, I was working with coaches. Now, fundamentally, right, coaching, we say that coaching is about performance, right? It's about moving people forward. It's about goal setting. It's about keeping people on track. And yet I know my coaches were brilliant. The ones that I was working with, prior to Burnout 1 and Burnout 2, I'd worked with some really awful ones before then, but I'd been working with some really incredible coaches. If they had been able to spot the signs of burnout and coach me differently, I fundamentally believe that even if I was still kind of, I suppose, destined to get to burnout in the first place, that it wouldn't have been as serious as it was. I know my burnout was like extreme cases of burnout. I know that not everybody is going to be living that same extreme. Right? I know all of that. I also know that coaches can be the game changers. If coaches are able to spot the signs, and not to diagnose, we're not here to diagnose, but if we can spot the signs, if coaches can spot the signs and coach differently, and then go into the goal setting, the performance, and everything else that comes as a result of that. But if they could start to shift the coaching to make it a really, really safe environment, I genuinely believe that coaches are in a prime position to help prevent and to help people come through burnout. Now, I've coached over 700 leaders through burnout now. I have trained over 160 coaches from 15 countries in how to be burnout informed. I'm training master burnout coaches. I know from the very, very core of my being that coaches are in a prime position for this. Loads of leaders don't care, still don't care. Like lots of leaders are still kind of blaming us as individuals for not being resilient enough, right? Well, it's because you weren't resilient enough. I'm almost using resilience as a tool to, a kind of stick to beat people with, right? Where it's your fault because you weren't resilient. When burnout starts to happen in organizations, leaders like, we'll just get more resilience training in. You can keep layering resilience training and telling people they're not resilient. But if the organization, if the workplace, if the relationships, if the working hours, if the culture is toxic, you're not allowing people breaks. You're not allowing people to understand fundamentally who they are. You're not providing the right support, the right environment. You can talk about well-being and resilience all day long, but you are creating a toxic environment. And in toxic environments that cause the erosion of our sense of self, this is where we're getting to the point of burnout. So lots of leaders still don't care. They still think it's an individual issue. Lots of us as individuals, we never think burnout's going to happen to us, right? Burnout's the thing that happens to those people over there, not me, because I'm successful and I thrive under pressure and I love doing what I do. And so like burnout's never going to happen to me, right? We all think we're immune to it. Even when we get there the first time, we think, what the bloody hell was that? And we usually wait, like it's when we're on the road to kind of a second or a third and we think, I can't go there again. That's when we start to seek help, the majority of us, right? But imagine if coaches could spot that sooner and really, really make the change. That's what I'm excited about. That's what I'm really passionate about. That's some of what I want to get across in these lives. But I also, as I said, I want you, if you have got questions, if you've got stuff that you want to explore, let's do it in this space. And even if you can't join me live because the time doesn't work for you or whatever, ask me your questions. I will answer them for you. I want this to be a space where we can stop a lot of this misinformation. I want us to be able to genuinely understand what burnout is so that we can all play a part in stopping it, in catching it, in preventing people to get to that place. I know that burnout is preventable. Now, some people say to me, and as a result of my first TEDx, right, I had a guy message me like, why would you want to stop anybody getting from burnout, right? Clearly it's been, you're all right as a result of it. Why would you want to stop anybody from getting that? And I'm always kind of a too much, right? Sometimes maybe we have to hit our rock bottom. And maybe for lots of us, burnout is that rock bottom, right? So maybe for some of us, we have to get to that point so that whatever we create after that is a thing that we're meant to be creating, right? If that's what you believe. But fundamentally, if we can stop people getting to that point in the first place, why wouldn't we? I've lived with chronic illness for 12 years as a result of burnout. Why would I want anybody else to have to live with chronic illnesses, chronic diseases, constant exhaustion, constant pain? Why would I want anybody else to have to go through that? If we can stop it, let's stop it. And I believe as coaches, we are in a prime position to be able to do that. So that's what I want us to be able to kind of co-create together. You'll probably find, right? And this is, I know I keep kind of looking to the side. It's my kind of, it's where I'm thinking. But like this, this is completely unedited. This is completely uncut. This is totally live. This is completely unscripted. This is just me and you, right? And that's what I want this to be. I want this to be me and you having a conversation, very possibly with me also having a bit of a rant every Monday about the stuff that I get passionate about. But we do need to get passionate about this, right? We've got to be challenging this misinformation. We've got to be using our own brains more to actually, is that right? Is that information right? Where do we find out more about this? What can I do? How can I stop people? How do I understand it? How do I really understand the signs and symptoms? If it's not just workplace related, what does that mean for all of us, right? How is it showing up? How is it presenting? Let's have those sorts of conversations. Now, I've got a list of things that I can bring to these, but I want you to get involved with it. Okay, so I suppose that's our ground rules, right? We're live. I'm live with you every Monday, 7:30 a.m. If you cannot join me live, but you have questions, you have comments, you have things that you want to share, pop them in chats. Pop them in the chat, message me, do whatever. I will answer them live for you if you cannot join. This is a judgment-free space. There's no such thing as a stupid question. and you will accept me for however it is that I show up on a Monday morning. Whatever I look like, whether I go off topic, whether I go off on a tangent, whether I go off on a rant, whether I need a little bit of thinking time, whatever that needs to look like, this is going to be a safe space for everybody. We're going to talk about burnout. This is going to be the space where burnout ends, right? I'm really, really passionate about that, right? Burnout ends here. We do not need to keep seeing the numbers growing. So the next few minutes, as I said, let's talk about this email, and some of it, I suppose, is linked to some of the rants that I've already provided with you this morning. As I said, I got an email a couple of weeks ago, but it's not a one-off email. I think that's why it felt important to kind of share it with you. A woman had completed a quiz that I have on my website that basically asks you, right, are you ready to specialize in burnout? And she'd got her email and she'd sent me a response to say that I'm really passionate about this work, but I can't even recover from my own burnout. So basically, how am I supposed to help other people? Now, again, I'm paraphrasing, but that's a comment, a question, a message that I get quite a lot from lots of different people. Burnout can take years, if ever, for us to recover from. I've said that to you already this morning. If you are waiting to be completely recovered before you start to do this work, you're never going to get started doing this work. I also know and recognize, though, because again, I felt this for myself. This work, I genuinely believe, is not something that we choose, right? You're not sat with a career advisor. You're not sat with your mates, over lunch or breakfast or whatever it is that you're doing, right? You're not sat having those conversations, be like, do you know what? I really want to be a burnout coach, right? I really want to be a burnout coach. Nobody's sat in schools or colleges or universities going like, do you know what? I want to coach burnout. Right, it's just not happening. The work chooses you, and I believe that fundamentally the work chooses you, because if you have been to burnout, like proper, severe, debilitating levels of burnout, there is something within you that just knows that you want to stop anybody else from experiencing what you did. Right, I genuinely think that that's where we get to with it. But we can't keep waiting to be recovered before we go through it. And I'm not even necessarily sure that we do like actually recover from burnout. I think we just have to move, like we're just continually moving through it. I know my default, if any of my life kind of gets out of balance, if I experience, a bit too much stress, even sometimes, right, if I do too much cardio at the gym, it's like my body goes automatically right into survival mode. I feel like I'm the anxiety, it's not an anxiety, but almost like the feeling of anxiety within my body is like, I've got to keep going, right? I've got to keep going. I've got to keep pushing. I've got to keep going. Now, again, I understand the neuroscience of why that happens now, but it is almost like, right, that's now within me. I've experienced burnout twice. I know I will never ever get to burnout again. Never. I'm never getting to burnout number 3. But I also know I could come and have come dangerously close to it again over the last 12 years. So I think once it happens, there is something within us. But I don't believe, like, we don't get over burnout, right? It's not just like, oh, like, I've got to get over this. And even in terms of, if we think about recovery, I just think like burnout is something we just have to come through. Like every single day, we need small and consistent daily actions that get us through that, right? Fundamentally, we need to really understand who we are at our core. We need to understand who we are. And we need to keep eliminating all of that toxicity within our lives. But if we're waiting to be recovered from burnout before we start to do this work, we're never going to start to do the work. But I also want to say we can be passionate about it, but also lived experience does not equal expertise. If you've seen, if you've been following me for a while with this, you'll know that I say this repeatedly, right? Lived experience does not equal expertise. We can share our story, and that ultimately that's where I started to go to with this, right? I started to share my story and my experiences, and then I started to attract lots and lots of clients that, well, you're talking to me, right? I've been exactly where you are. I'm going through exactly what you are. I now want you to coach me. But I also fundamentally knew all of the coach training that I had done And I've done some amazing coach training. That was brilliant for coaching. It wasn't brilliant for coaching burnout. We need something different when it comes to burnout from a coaching perspective. Because if we just continue to coach mindset and we just continue to coach goals and we just continue to coach performance, we're not allowing people the space to come through burnout. We're not allowing the space to prevent burnout. And in a lot of cases, lots of coaches are pushing people further into it. Likewise, as I said right at the beginning, right, time management techniques, resilience techniques, they're great. But if somebody is right on the brink of burnout or in the depths of burnout or coming through the other side of burnout, they're not going to make the blindest bit of difference. Literally, you're just going to be pushing people further into burnout. So we need to understand what does work. We need to understand what makes it different. Now, again, I have spent hundreds of thousands of pounds and tens of thousands of hours continually, loads of the learning that I've done over the last 12 years, I could have not done. But I also, now again, I didn't have a me, right? I didn't have a coach that understood burnout in the way that I now do. I didn't have a community of people that understood burnout in the way that I now do, right? I'm creating those things for other people. It was missing for me, but I just knew that like normal coaching wasn't enough to help people through burnout. And that's why I have created, that's why I continue to create, that's why I'm still researching, that's why I'm still doing all of that stuff. I said these lives were only going to be 30 minutes. I've hit my 30. So I'm going to wrap up, and we can do more of that because I've probably gone on to the why I want to do this calls more than I have answering that question. We need to sort the lighting out in here as well, don't we? It's not great. I've got a huge kind of, so the sun is shining, which is lovely in itself, right? But also not great when it comes to this stuff. So we're going to be live. I'm going to be live with you every Monday at 7:30. I'm going to be coming to you straight after my yoga. I'm going to get off the mat. I'm going to get myself ready in the best possible way that I can. I'm going to grab myself a cuppa, maybe sometimes my breakfast, and we're going to talk burnout. We're going to talk burnout coaching. I'm going to answer your questions if you have them. If not, I'm going to talk for half an hour, and I'm just going to keep talking. I can talk about this stuff for years, right? So I could definitely do half an hour every Monday, but we're just going to come. It's going to be a no judgment space. We're going to share the space together. We're going to share the questions together. We are going to be where burnout ends. If you are passionate about this work and you are genuinely worried that you think you've got to be like completely fixed, completely repaired before you can even start to talk about it, you don't. But you do need to ensure that you have the right skills, the right knowledge to enable you to do this work safely, ethically, and effectively. And I'm really, really hot on that. Right? Lots and lots of coaches out there are not doing this safely, ethically, or morally. They're not doing it. They've not got the right skills. They're just like lots of people out there are doing more harm than good. We're not going to do that. This is going to be the space where we're going to change all of that. If you do want to find out if you can specialize, I will pop the link to the quiz. You can find out what kind of burnout coach you are. There's 4 types of burnout coaches. You can find out what type of coach you are. I will pop that in there. But if you have got questions, comments, reflections that you want me to talk about in next week's live, pop them in the comments. I'm going to schedule the live for next week now. So I'll be back with you again next week. But let's get started, right? This has been the intro. This has been the start of our first. I'm really, really excited to be back with all of you again on a weekly basis. It's been such a long time since I have done any lives. I can explain more about why that has been the case if anybody's interested. If you're not, I'm just going to answer your questions. But we're going to be doing this together every Monday, 7:30 a.m. If you can't join live, but you've got stuff that you want to talk about, do it. And you've now got all week to go and watch the replay. If you're thinking, right, I really wanted to get involved, but I couldn't do it. You've got a week now. Watch the replay, get involved, and I will see you next week. So I'm going to say thanks very much for joining me. I am Kelly Swingler. I am the Burnoutologist. I'm training master burnout coaches. This is where burnout ends. And I'm excited to see what we can create together every week in these conversations. Go and have an amazing Monday. Go and have an amazing week. And I will see you again next Monday, 7:30 a.m. Go have a good one. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.